Alright, so let's write some code. Now, as we said in this section, make sure you carefully think about what you're going to write before you actually start writing it. The strong description of the idea should be a great starting point for the code that you write. So in this case, let's get going. Right, so up until this point, we initialized the two vectors up and down with those initial values, and we define them. So now we need to go through the code that does the actual calculations for up and down. And I'll just be putting the curly braces on the same line to save some space. Different people have different coding styles, but I'll just use this one for the example. Right, so we basically initialized up and down I. So now we're basically doing this inner loop for all j smaller than I. And then we need to check whether aj is smaller than I or larger than I, so that we know whether we should be updating up I or down I. So if ai is larger than aj, this means the sequence is increasing. So we can say up I and then if the opposite is happening, we'll be updating down I. Right. And then all we need to do is update best length to be the maximum of best length, the best thing we found till that point, and then the maximum of up I and down I. And then we need to return that best length. Now, at that point, you should read through the code. Don't just say that you're ready. Read through your code and think about how it's going to behave for different test cases. We'll go into the test cases next, but just look at the description, look at the code, make sure it's doing the right thing. So we're initializing the values. We're initializing best length to 0. Now let's think, is that the right value for best length? Well, it doesn't look like it is, right? Because if my sequence is only one character long, which is possible, then it's a valid case, then that loop is not going to be executed at all, because we're looping from 1 to n. So base length is going to stay 0, so our problem is, well, in this case, our program is not going to work. So by reading what you wrote, you'll be able to identify problems like this one, and then you'll find a bunch of semicolons that you missed, and sometimes it's even going to be a problem with the logic. So reading through the code, initializing up and down, initializing best length properly this time, putting the initial values of ones, which is good. I goes from 1 to n minus 1, j goes from 0 to I minus 1. That looks good too. Updating up if AI is larger, updating down is if AI is smaller. Up uses down, down uses up. Right? So this is looking good. At this point, we're ready with the code, and we can move on to the next section, which is running through some test cases with the code that we just wrote.